Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. On this beautiful day, we are hosting my brother from Zim, Dr. Shingi Mavima. In the first episode last week, you heard about his upbringing, his strong mother, biological, his strong stepmother, who he gave a lot of credit, and we thank her, and the dad, and the grandmother who raised him. We spoke about his passion. We spoke about his academic education. We spoke about his volunteer work with refugees in Grand Rapids and what led him to be such a diverse man, leading to him now teaching at Toledo University. Now, my friend, we want to go deeper. You and I are published authors. Talking about doing so many things. You ended our episode last week by telling us this is the time. The time is now.
Indeed.
Why not now? When you wait, sometimes you don't want, you say it in your words, you don't want to be 80 years old saying, I wish I had done that. So when it comes, you record music, you write, you teach, you travel, but also you give credit to the current changes in the world and the technology that is available with it. So we live in a time where many excuses people used to put on don't have to be excuses. Welcome back. In the second episode this week, we want to focus on your literary work. Let's talk about your literary works. What themes or messages that you aim to convey through your poetry, through your novels, through your teaching, through the papers you write. Please let us know how all these get together and the messages you want the world to know. And now we have also this channel to convey more message to the non-readers. There are people there who don't read novels, who get the book and put it on the shelf. Those who watch YouTube channels, others now on TikTok. Maybe you put something on TikTok so others can listen. Please.
Indeed. So yes, I think we are all accorded with certain talents, dare I say superpowers, and I found early on that the word written or otherwise, I had a way with that, so I've really leaned in, I have this life philosophy. I've got a few life philosophies, but one of them is commit to your magic. We all have that magic, and you owe it to yourself to commit to your magic. Your magic could be maybe your charm. It could be your if you're good with your hands, if you are, if you are good at sport, if you can sing, whatever your magic is. It could be a personality trait. You could be the hardest worker in the room, whatever it is. Your empathy, that could be your magic, right? Whatever it is, accentuate that. So for me, among the few things that I was good at, I found early on that I was very good with the written word. So it just became a way to channel that, right? I was always playing around. Done at some point I would write like debates, when I would like what do you call it, when you would freelance
Yes.
for small papers or publications, where I would try to find someone with an opposing opinion and I couldn't find them, and I would write both sides of the debate under a different pen name, and I would see people debate which guy was right, but in the meantime I'm the one who argued both. So I'll say like little things like that, you know what I mean, that I've always really enjoyed. But so part of it is writing for the love of writing. But I also feel that one of the ways in which Africans and people of African descent have been historically marginalized has been on the apparent, being deemed intellectually inferior. You know what I mean? You might even still hear that today.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a lot of documentation of that, even by prominent people who influence scholarship today, and one of the ways in which that was justified was to say, look, in many parts of sub-Saharan Africa, they don't even have a strong literary tradition. Of course, we have our oral traditions and other ways we communicated. So for me, not only did I just have a passion for writing, but I also knew this was like literal war, like us writing is a form of resistance. So it's a form of rectifying the historical record. So that just that even drives me further, that we're gonna tell these stories, right? We're gonna tell these stories. We're gonna and also, if you read some of the stories, yeah, they talk about struggle, but I also wanted to not necessarily just be woe is me about now for a lot of, and this is not the problem of African writers. This is maybe the problem of expectations put upon them, which
Yes,
is to say that, yeah, sure, you can write about your experiences as a child soldier, as a refugee, and those are very real experiences. We need to hear those.
yes.
But those are not the only African stories that exist. Sometimes I just want to talk about the mischief that me and my friends got up to on the soccer field.
Uh,
So that way, when a reader who's not necessarily from that community, they don't just limit us to one typecast or one traumatic experience, right? That we are also very happy and we live robust lives. Nobody thinks about the US and think about gangland Chicago as being the only American experience, so that everybody is lives in rural Kentucky or whatever. But those are both American stories, right? But very different. But the West, because of its hegemony, has been allowed that space to be all kinds of things, right? From Rambo to romantic movies and from all these things, right? So I've always wanted to represent as well, to say, like, you know what, I want to talk about this story about this bipolar guy in Zimbabwe and is going through because that's a very real thing, but nobody thinks about
exactly. Yes.
you know.
Or when
So
they, or when they think about it, they put it in a stereotype way.
mm,
I will tell
mm,
you something related to that. We started a program in our communities
okay,
where adult men were raping children.
mm,
Shingi, you live here, I live here.
mhm,
That happens every single day.
mhm,
We even here in the United States have them people named and they have a card. When you live near Party Fire, you can find out.
mm,
But when that story broke out that a man had raped a child in our community,
mm,
the few American donors went up hands. How can that help? I'm like, oh, whoa, whoa, wait a minute. Rape
mm,
happens everywhere. But
mhm,
for a reason, some people wanted to tie it until it is barbaric and how come this man did this as if it has never happened.
mm,
Sick people
mm, mm, mm.
do that. Those
Yeah.
people are here in
Mm,
Lansing, they're in Toronto,
mm,
they're in New York, they are in. But when it is an African context, it
mm,
becomes evil. It becomes backward. It is how can it happen? When it
mm.
happened in New York, they cover it up. They go to court, and the story never breaks out. So I
Right.
am so happy that you have focused to tell stories that people don't tell. Please
Mhm,
take us back to
mhm.
your first uh, poetry, because even your poetry goes back right into that. You
Yeah.
wrote the papers, but the passionate book you wrote, and I'm glad now you have the books near you. People can even see them.
Yeah.
You put links to Amazon because you want people to buy them in addition to listening to this interview. Just
For
a
sure.
quick summary of each of the books so people can see them, know
Indeed.
published. We have many writers in the world. Many do not get published. So those of us who are published and are there and support each other, we want to see those books live. So when you talk about a book, lift it up so people can also see where they are, and we put links for them.
Absolutely, so that's great. That's great, and indeed, to quickly pivot to that thing with the sexual assault you were talking about, the way that folks will talk about it, they'll make it seem as if you endorsed it, right? Like, we were all up in arms about it, the same way that folks are, but for them it becomes an inherent or a pathological trait of the community, which is ridiculous. But Yeah, so the poetry, even, I really started to define myself as a poet when I got to the US. I was performing, I recorded a few things that went viral, at least viral for that time. Um, so I really, as I say this to say, the poetry publications came first. I entered some competitions in undergrad, where, yeah, I actually have one of the things that I'm pointing to right now.
Ah,
That's a newspaper competition I entered, and I came first in 2009 with one of my poems. These are the little moments that encourage you, right? So that's another thing that I want to say. Yeah, take your shot. If it doesn't work, you will get the feedback you need to get better. But if it does, then you know you're on the right path and keep moving. So make sure you take your shots early on. Then when I had gone to graduate school, the first quote unquote publication I put out is that thing that I was showing you with my. But you can tell this is like got a spiral binding and so forth. But it's some of my poems in here, right? But why I made this is my graduate school was doing. People at the time didn't know that I do that. I do poetry or whatever. They were doing a fundraiser of sorts. So we're having a dance. I was like, all right, man, I will perform a couple pieces if you allow me.
yeah.
I didn't know what they were walking into. So I printed like maybe like 5 or 10 of these. Then I performed and I rocked it, probably helped because people didn't know at all, didn't expect that at all. But we ended up auctioning them off for I can't remember what the cause was that we were attached to at the time. So that was like my first foray into that. Then I got back. I was like, wow, that was nice, right? But I wonder if we can do this for real. So I came across again another little technical moment for folks to learn to maybe think about their publishing. So there's a platform at the time, I think it was called Shared something, but now called Author Central on Amazon.
Yes.
So I was like, yeah, let me see if I can, if I can figure this out. So that's when I transferred a lot of those poems and added a few more from other friends, and we put out a thing called Homeward Bound. So
Um,
this is entirely self-published. The photo I took care of, with the help of a photographer friend. The design, you can tell too that I mean, the poetry is good because it's what I do. But you can tell the quality of it. It's good. It's small, but I'm not necessarily a graphics kind of person. So the good thing that I'm saying from all this is, yeah, go for it. There's platforms like Author Central, but also the other thing is, if you can get people on your team who can do certain things better than you can, then do that. That also helps. So a couple years later, the same young lady I had met at Penn State who had helped me put this together, Angeli is her name, very good friend of mine. She had founded her own publishing company, and she contacted me with a friend of hers. Well, both of them are friends of mine. But she contacted me. It's like, hey, would you mind? Would you be interested in putting out your work on our through our company, through our publishing firm? So that's when we doubled back, and I put out Mirage of Days Old, right? So it's another poetry anthology. So I
yeah.
can say it's my second official sort of book, and this was great because I got to work with them. I was one of the first like 2 or 3 books that they published. So they are figuring out the publishing business as well, and I'm just getting my work out there. So this one was so much fun. Unfortunately, that company ended up going out of business after a couple of years,
Mm,
which is unfortunate because just to see like young women and young women of color at that sort of get into that space was pretty interesting. Um, but the thing is, this is why you probably can't find this online because they went out of business. I could have republished it, but I don't think I ever got the original files from them,
yes,
Uh, yeah, so maybe one day I will, and we'll put it out again. Then later on, the story I always wanted to tell was the story of Pashena. This is the book right here.
yes, Shana.
Yeah, so this is the story of my childhood, but it's not really like that's why I call it an autobiographical novel. Well, what does that mean? Because novel usually implies fiction, and autobiography means the story of your life. I
Yes.
call it that because I tell it largely through the lens of my childhood. It's not necessarily the story of me, but it's the story of my community.
Mm,
So some of the themes I've made up slight situations or consolidated characters. You don't want to talk about necessarily 3 or 4 people when you can, who only do like one thing. So sometimes I'll combine them into like one character so that they are more compelling. So things like that. So this became the story of my childhood, and the community as it evolved. And this came out in 2018. Absolutely proud of this. This is like my magnum opus. I'm so glad. I wanted to tell that story, but to the point we're talking about it's never the right time. One At some point it got to a place where I was like, all right, for as long as this is the book I plan on writing and I'm not writing it, I'm
mm,
not progressing. I'm not thinking of what else I could do. So I was
exactly.
like, I need to get this out of the way so I can move on. Otherwise it will always be my next book. You know what I mean?
That's
So I put it out and I worked with a publisher, another young woman out of Detroit. Shout out Kiera. She's the one who put this out here in a company, House Capacity Publishing. 2018 has been a great ride. This year, I've been in Australia talking about it. I've been in South Africa talking about it, DC, and across the Midwest. 2018. So I've had a good run with that. Then over lockdown, I'd had another idea for a while, but I took the time during lockdown and as we were all trying to stay sane. And,
yes.
that's where the story of the leak came out. I wrote this in 2020, 21. Had it looked at by a few very good friends, again, including my mom, but other people I listed when you look on the thank yous page, everybody so this came out just this February and we had a good time. We did a launch in Lansing.
So
We were over there. That's where he got his book, right? Yeah,
I got mine, the leak right here.
yeah. So it's been a good time. I also got to be on the news, the local news here of Toledo Fox, talking about it, which is just good to, in addition to being in some Zimbabwean publications as well. So it's good to see the resonance in both places I call home. Indeed. So yeah, that's a little bit about my literary journey with
Mm,
the creative works. As a scholar, of course, I have to publish as well. So I'm constantly publishing articles and book chapters as well. A lot of it focuses on African literature because that's what I like to
that's
talk
fine.
about, as well as music and really a lot of popular culture things, right? So the impact of music in African and Afro diasporic communities, indeed. So I write a lot of that as well, indeed.
Shingi, last year I spent a year at Harvard University
Indeed, yes.
doing advanced leadership initiative.
Mm,
In that role, you audit classes you want, you teach some of the classes you want, you do workshops. So I
mhm,
decided to audit a class on African perspectives and democracy.
mm,
When I worked in that class, the readings they were giving students, the YouTube videos they were giving students were all narrated by people in the UK, in British, by white people,
mm,
but no assigned assignments. Few of them were from the 80s, 90s. Was a
mm,
colonial setting. I
mm,
asked the professor. I know so many scholars.
mm,
The reason I'm saying it is, basically, you know me, I speak my mind.
mm.
Sometimes it gets me in trouble, sometimes
Mhm,
but I speak my mind. So I went and talked to the professor. I said, I have contacts of people
mhm,
who can give you current situation as of now. Then I spoke in the class
mm,
and I spoke about the status of our countries and what we are going through. We are
mm,
talking about this, and I'm going, you should apply at Harvard University. Toledo will lose you, but they need a
mm.
professor like you.
Yeah,
So just make a note of that.
for sure.
When you launched this book here in Lansing, The Leak,
Mm,
main
mhm,
character is Kuda.
mm.
Interestingly, there was a Kuda in the audience.
Yeah,
Kuda,
yeah,
who is a guy we know. So it's a Zim name. But the
yeah.
journey of Kuda, like you said, you brought that journey to the faces and the minds of us readers who have not, I went to Zimbabwe, but I didn't go to all these different places you mentioned. The man is traveling all over the world and shocked at so many different places, but also teaching us really the intricacies of young people and the journeys they take in this country. What should a reader who has not read this book expect when they pick up this book?
Man, that's go ahead. Sorry.
Make a commercial right now.
Oh yeah. So the story in, there's two things that you will, two, maybe three things that you'll get from it. The first one is life and its ups and downs is not pretty, and it's not always symmetrical to that point. It doesn't wrap itself up perfectly in a ball like the way that a lot of movies or stories have historically told us. You have our ups and downs, but we gotta keep moving, right? In fact,
Right.
I was talking about the two characters in the book that are sort of prominent, Kuda and his best friend Kurawone. So Kuda, the full name Kuda Kwase, means God's will, right? Kurawone is a more traditional name, which means literally like you learn them when you get older, or like grow up and see, like life reveals itself to you. So those are the two main sort of like, or at least like two prominent characters in the book. And in a nutshell, it's just like, whatever God's will is or whatever life throws your way, just keep moving. It's not always going to be pretty, right? But
Yes.
all we have is this moment right here. You can't always worry about how ugly things are going to get, because they very well might. But all you can control is what you do in this moment. So that's a large sort of theme of it, and but also community, right? Always find, they don't have to be the richest, the most celebrated, but find your people in life. Just find your people, find home, right? Whatever home looks like for you, but like find a place where you can lay your head and be at peace, and I'm talking about this in terms of people, right? So it could be you see in the story that this guy, I don't want to spoil it, but he's promised there's the opportunity for him to like make it all the way to the top,
Yes.
but he finds his solace in very unlikely places, in places that are almost the opposite of what he was being told, what he wanted to go for. So find those places. That's one. The second thing is I also just want people to learn or to have an insight into some of the struggles that young people in a place like urban Zimbabwe. Now, I don't want this to be like, this is the story for that. There's many different stories, but this is kind of the thing that you might see somebody struggle with. Then finally, on the opposite side of that, almost complementing that, these are very human experiences. You can start to read it again, like we were talking about earlier, where something might happen in this community and you're like, wow, that's some. Then you're like, yeah, but you do the same thing, or you experience the same thing here. So, so that's the thing, right? To say like, yeah, sure, this guy lives in Harare, in urban Zimbabwe, and is some of his family members are saying they're disappointed in him and they should make something of his life, and now he has to make decisions about leaving the country, or what he's gonna do, or go to another less glamorous career or things like that. But those are all the decisions that my American friends are also making, right? Like we I have friends from around the world who deal with the same thing, disappointing your parents or feeling like your siblings are outshining you. These are universal experience. These are things that we navigate all the time, right? Having to decide, right? Right now, I just found out about an opportunity at Harvard, right? We were just talking about that right now, and now I have to decide like, but I really like it here. But also this could be very good for me. These are decisions we are making on the daily. So also just to show you that on one hand, it's a Zimbabwean story, it's an African story, but it's the story of people, and wherever you are, you can resonate with it. You know what I mean?
That is very true. When we are talking about how sometimes the Western world characterizes our communities, when you are working on the leak, I was working on this young
Oh, wow. Yeah.
who is navigating COVID and trying to explain this worldwide issue to a grandmother who have never been to school. The grandmother is wondering, why are you not going to school? And his own words, his own understanding and what he knew in English, get it to the grandmother to understand it. I wrote that book while you were writing. And again, people don't realize that our children didn't go to school for 2 years without a computer, without a phone. Oh, now we have balloons. We have anything. This is the technology. I did the peace sign and the balloons went up.
Wow. Okay.
That is the technology right there.
Wow.
But people don't realize that our people are dealing with the same human issues some people are dealing with. The only difference is they are in a different part of the world. You are in a different part of the world. Ours has a Mac computer. When you put up a peace sign, balloons go up. They are a small Nokia phone that they have to make one phone call. But spirit, human, go for it.
Absolutely.
Dr. Mavima, I am so glad you are telling these stories, but you are not just a writer, you are not only teaching, you are also involved in community development. How did the idea for Clubhouse International come about? And how do you hope to achieve, what do you hope to achieve through this non-profit organization?
Sounds good. Yeah, so Clubhouse, man, that's another one of my babies together with Pashena that I'm very, very proud of. Again, I spoke a little bit about the ways in which we founded it, but I always knew that even when I was growing up, all the awards I ever got, I was pretty good in school. But the thing that I constantly got awards for, even when I left high school, was things to do with community service. You know what I mean? So I always knew that I was predisposed to that, and I always knew that I wanted to give back to in ways that were also not the conventional. A lot of people I remember people getting scholarships. Let me give you an anecdote of how sometimes we think about philanthropy back home.
Yes.
When I was in second or third grade, a toothpaste company came. I won't say their name so that we won't get sued. But anyway, they came to to my primary school, and one of the things that they did was we lined up, and after they spoke about good dental care, we lined up for them to check our teeth, right? Yeah, and they thought mine were fine, were pretty good. So the ones who they thought their teeth were good, they gave them toothbrushes, as a reward. Right? But if your teeth were not, then they didn't. Now, as an adult, I'm like, that's backwards though, right? Because the fact that my teeth are clean means I probably have a toothbrush already, And when you're not giving the people without tooth, things like that. So I say that to say, or even like scholarships that people get for being good in school, right? It's different. That one is an egregious example. But even that, I'm like, you know what? I think we are rewarding
the long we are rewarding the different group and not the one that actually need it most.
That actually needs it, So yeah, so part of my reason for my drive for this was I wonder if we can give scholarships for not just for the best students, right? Maybe that we can factor that into, but can we give scholarships to the best citizens, right? To say like who's this kid that people just like? Or who's always helping his classmates, who's always doing community service, things like that. So that's what I thought about when it's like, we can start something. So we sat down, contacted a few of my childhood friends, some from the same community, some, and as well as some American friends I had made. And we just put it together. Clubhouse is an acronym standing for cultivating leadership and understanding by harnessing our unity in service. So we wanted to do something where the way we would earn your scholarships, right? The schools would nominate students, the community would nominate students, then we would give those scholarships. It's minor figures. It's a lot of money for folks, but it's also not like bank break. You know what I'm saying? It might be like $100 a year for a student, and we work like 10 or 20 students a school year. So Yeah, but we wanted to use that criteria. So they do that, but as a means of sustaining their scholarship, they have to do like 3 or 4 community service events a year. So that way the students also like, yeah, and we also send in different professionals, to mentor them on different things that they are interested in. So we really wanted to do that. Then every year it would build up to a huge festival in which the kids would showcase what they've been learning. Then it would build up to a soccer match, and maybe would bring some local government officials to come see this, and we have a whole celebration. So we really wanted to do that. And we started that, like I said, I was in school. My guy in Zimbabwe was actually an undergrad at the time. And so we have written these testimonials about how the first time I sent money for this tuition,
Mm.
he actually received that alert while he was waiting in line he was getting kicked out of college because he hadn't been able to. So
Oh
so
my goodness. Yes.
so he remembers whoever he was with at the time who was not affiliated with us, and like, yo, you should just spend this money on this thing, then you can repay it later. And he said, no, that's not what this money. So that's another thing too, guys, that I just want to share. Like, be faithful, be a good steward to because he could have done that, but one, it would have damaged the organization. And I know how whether people believe in God or the universe, I know how that works. It never works out well for you if you do that.
Exactly.
Myself, I was also going through a tough time, but the money that we got, right, I was always like, yeah, this money, people have given this money, or I've collected this money for this purpose. I have to do right by it. Just be a good steward, just be faithful in that way. Um, and the other thing too is dream bigger. I want to say that because, yeah, here's a story that shaped the organization. I was thinking like, all right, we can start this program, and let's see if we can send 2 kids to school a year, right? 2 kids, because
Yes.
I can do that. It's $100, but we can do 3 terms, so that means like $30 a term,
Yes.
right? Easy, easy. We can do that, right? Let's do that. One of my mom's friends in Australia, she had fundraised for an organization that was getting shut down. So she had like $400 that she needed to, how when you dissolve your
Oh,
organization.
yeah.
So she's like, yeah, hey, maybe you guys can use this. So because she sent us $400, it means we could do 11 or 12 students. I was like, all right, so and we need to use this money, otherwise we'll be in breach, right? So I was like, all right, let's start it with 11 students. We have never remember how we wanted to do 2
Oh,
initially,
yes. Yes.
but because of that little boost we got with that $400 that one time, that was the only donation she ever gave us, which allowed us to do 11. We've never gone below 11 then. So it means like, but I'm sure if we had started with 2, we still 10 years later, we might still be at like 5 or something
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But because we set ourselves a standard fortuitously. So yeah, aim high. You know what I'm saying? If you fall short of that, maybe I would have done 8 or 9. But typically, if you aim to the standard, you start to play in that realm of things, and your impact is even bigger. So whatever you're dreaming for, right? Whatever you think, when I set myself a goal for books, I'm like, all right, last time I sold whatever number, 200 books. This time I want 1,000, right? That's what I'm going for. Then you just do that. And if I fail to get to 1,000, maybe I get to an 800 that I otherwise would have never gotten to. Maybe I get to, but likely I might get to 2 or 3,000. But if you never dream, you never have a dream come true. That's what I like to say. So
Uh,
dream, yeah, indeed,
wow.
yeah.
And I was going to ask you a following question on what advice you would give other people who want to work in your work, but
Mm,
through this, you've already given us a highlights of dream bigger. Don't
mm.
go, don't shortchange yourself, basically.
Also, yeah, indeed.
And
Mm,
while you are doing it, be transparent.
mhm,
People ask me how I run the organization I run and why it has been successful for 23 years straight.
mm,
Keyword is transparent.
mm,
I have many young people or other people, not just young, who run organizations that they take these organizations and use
mm,
them as their own ATM.
mm,
I have a good example which people can look up
mm,
called Three Cups of Tea. Three Cups of Tea was an amazing book written by a man called Greg Mortensen.
Yes.
6 plus.
I think it was community reading in Michigan 1 year, right?
It
Yeah,
was February. Every person who went to Afghanistan
yeah.
had to read that book.
Mm, mm, mm.
Then he wrote a second one. He built more than 40 schools in Afghanistan. Then he wrote a second one called Stones in Two Schools.
Okay.
In his writing of a second one of his big supporters broke out a story that there was one lie,
Mm,
in the first book, Three Cups of Tea.
yeah.
Then when they went to investigate, they found out he was not transparent in his accountability. What you just said there.
Yeah.
We gave him money for the organization and building schools. He just put it in a pocket. When he buy a soda, he took from the same pocket and bought a soda. So when they tried to audit him, he didn't have paper trail.
Mm,
So Mavima gave me $100. I sent it to Afghanistan. Here are the receipts. Zero.
mm,
It was like, the school is there. What are you asking me? He went from where he was,
yeah.
went to jail because not
Oh,
transparent.
you went to jail?
He went to jail, yes, for it. Yes.
Wow.
And now you even Google him, you can't. I mean, things went bad, bad lie, lack of accountability. Our people who are listening to us, transparent. And if you don't think it will bite you, doesn't take, it will come no matter how long it takes.
Absolutely.
Your mom gives you money for a student, you go take a woman out, or you go buy yourself a nice watch, it will come back and bite you. So transparency is a key in these areas. Doctor, as we come closer to the end of this interview, conversation, I want to call it.
Yeah.
People are going to sit and say, the man sings, the man writes, the man teaches, the man, you are everywhere doing everything. How do you relax? What is your relaxation moment? Or what do you do to rejuvenate after driving from Lansing back into Toledo and preparing for class? Now we are here. When is relaxation? What do you do for relaxation?
Oh man, so one of the things that I do for sure that I enjoy, the thing with folks like us, right, Jackson, is that when we are doing things, people see a lot of us, that it may actually exaggerate how often we are out there, you know. For the most part, I'm in my house watching YouTube and watching TV. That's what I do to relax. It's just that when I'm out, I'm really out. But also a lot of the things that I really recommend is I find relaxation in those endeavors. You know what I'm saying? So, for example, me driving to Lansing yesterday, that's also part of, you know, the drive itself is comforting. But then I'm in the studio with people I enjoy working with, so we produce something, but it's also not like high pressure. It's also like community. You know what I'm saying? So, for example, when we were in Lansing together for the book launch, for the leak, sure, I'm working in that moment, but it's also I'm also with the people I love, and we're also sharing drinks and so forth. So I just try to find ways to work relaxing into the things that I do on the daily. Otherwise, if you keep trying to say like I'll find time to relax later, you may not find it, you know, and it might also make you not really enjoy the things that you're doing in the moment. So I try to work that in. But yeah, when I'm not doing that, I'm reading. You can't be a good writer if you don't read. I'm on that hill I will die. You've gotta read. So I watch TV. That's really what I do indeed. Oh, sorry. I want to work this in before we are done, because two closely related points to Clubhouse, right? Which perhaps you can attest to as well. One of the things that I wanted to do, because a lot of people will ask me like, why don't you do this? Or we're trying to donate clothes to. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't really do that. I can tell you who does that. You know what I mean? So just be while you reach high, also stay true to your mission as much as possible, because like there's a thing called mission creep where you try to do everything.
Yes.
Right? Or especially if it's not coming from inside, if it's like coming from external, then you do nothing ultimately because you try to do too much. So like there's certain things that I, people say like, can you fundraise for this particular cause? I'm like, well, I can donate to it, That's not what Clubhouse does, though. You know what I'm saying? I can donate to it, or I can actually tell you who does that and does that very well, right? That doesn't have to be you doing everything. So do that. So one of those critiques is, why do you just work with we work with a couple of schools in Dangamvura, Mutare. It's like, why do you just work with those two schools? So every now and then we work with others as well, but we keep it to those two. I'm like, the reason I do that is I wanted to create a model that is easy to replicate. So trust me, if anybody ever asks me for all our constitution and other materials and say they want to work with these two schools, I will share all that stuff with you and you can develop your own. I wanted to do something that
Actually, yes.
everybody can kind of figure out how to do so that I don't have to do everything. I can focus on my garden here, but I can give you all my tips as well. So you do your garden next to mine and we can both thrive. So with that, ultimately, remember your why. This is the ultimate thing I'll say. Remember why you started, because sometimes I'll get tired. Maybe I have had a fight with a board member. I'm like, I want to quit. Or like, sometimes the fundraising is tough. I'm like, man, why do I even do this, right? Or some whatever thing. But it's like, that's not why I got in it, right? At the time, there's been a couple of times when I've told like some of my younger folks that I work with, who are maybe like volunteers. I was like, guys, I'm thinking of shutting this down. I don't know what something would have happened. And man, this is the importance of having a good team. The guy goes, oh, you can leave. Like you're not shutting anything down. You can go if you want. We're gonna keep doing this. You know what I mean? And that just I was like, all right, I hear you. I'm sticking around. For them, it was none. But again, it's because not only do I know my why, but even when I've forgotten it, I'm surrounding myself by people who know it so that they can remind me when I forget what my why is. So yeah, that's the last thing I'll say about, in terms of advice, that always remember your why, always go back. That's what will keep you going when the road gets tough. Indeed.
When you remember your why. Siniki wrote a book about that also. Remember your why. Yeah. But so when you think of all this before we get into the conclusion, what is one memorable moment or accomplishment in your career that has had a huge, significant impact on you?
Man, that's a lot. I think, this may seem like the obvious choice, but I'll tell you why. But I think when I got my doctorate, that in particular, not just because of how hard it is to do and how elite a group it is when you become a doctor in your field, but I think for me it was a culmination of so many things. It was a culmination of the community. There's a picture. I wish I had it here, but I have it up here, where my mom is holding me as a baby. Like I said, she had me when she was in college, right? When she got her bachelor's, and then she went on to get a PhD. And then the one we took at my graduation now, where she's embracing me now that I got my PhD. And it's just kind of like, that's the culmination of that journey. It's not just the academic journey, but look what we've been through, right? So I'm very proud of that. Also, then to see the people in my community in Dangamvura just say like, yo, that's one of ours, right? That, that's a post that was liked more than 700 times by when they posted it to the community group. It's like, yo, that's our guy. We remember little Shingi from down here, man. Yeah, remember he was always up here without shoes. Yeah, that's him now. You know what I mean? So for me, I think what that represents for me and my community, all this stuff has been great, but I think that in a moment like brought everything together. You know what I mean? It really, yeah, indeed.
That gown and that hat, it on 3 times, has a different significance. I know honorary PhDs, but to
Yeah.
stand there and look at these men and women who have worked so hard
Yeah.
and this degree, and to be doctor philosopher in your
Mm,
personal career. I
mm.
appreciate that, man. Congratulations. Thank you.
I appreciate. Yeah, thank you so much. And again, it's not about flexing on anybody or being better than anybody, as some people like to, some people portray themselves that way, but some people just feel that way when they see it. But I think it's just self-actualization. There was a time when uh I always tell this story about how with my grandma, yeah, grandmas are superheroes, man. But when I was like in preschool,
Mhm.
my grandmother had come to like a parent teachers thing, and I overheard the teacher tell her, uh, "Shingi anokonewa." Now, because of dialect, right?
Yes.
Closest word to konewa in Manyika land where we were is to be good, right? But
Yeah.
when you put it in a different dialect, like Chikaranga, it actually means he's not good, right? It means a different thing
Oh
altogether.
my goodness.
So
Wow.
I also heard her say that, right? So when we were walking away, I'm like, oh God, she said this. What does that mean? And my grandmother, being fast thinking, really upset that she had said this about a preschool kid. She told me the Manika interpretation of it. She said, "You're really good." And based off of the confidence I got on the from her with that little lie, I didn't realize until years later, after I was already confident in my academics. But I say that to say it's the culmination of that story. It's like I realized that there was a time when my preschool teacher said, like, he doesn't have it. You know what I mean? I'm like, look what we made of it, right? Look what we made of this. So
Wow.
indeed. So again, shout out to Go for that. Like, because she could have said, like, or she could have told me the truth and it would have broken me early
Exactly.
on. I'm saying, but she built me up with that little tweak of reality that's been. So
Wow.
it's a combination of all that, indeed.
Yeah, go to the go-go and all the many go-go's who are doing so much work today and who will
Absolutely.
continue to do so much work to
Mm,
raise communities of children. All you grandmothers all over the world, judges, mukakas, we
mm,
thank you, we appreciate you. Uh,
absolutely.
my friend, the last question I will ask you, which I ask every guest that has come here, more than 72 people have been on this channel and we continue to grow.
Mhm,
When you think of the time when you are 18,
mhm.
what advice would you have given yourself at 18 years of age?
18. Um, oh, yeah, that was a very good question. You know, yeah, yeah, I've learned so much since I was 18, though I think I had to go through it. So I don't know if I should tell him not to go through certain things because that's what I want to do. But I'm like, that's the road that led me here.
Yep.
But I think early on, I think I would have just been kinder early on. I think I took myself a little too seriously at the time.
Mm.
And I just think I could have invested in relationships a little better, so just just to not take life as seriously, right? Just to, I mean, no take the work you do seriously, but don't take yourself to have fun, be responsible. um but really just focus on building relationships, that will come to serve you. I mean, I've done a decent job of that, but I still think I could have done more. But also not to worry too much, man. I think I was very worried.
Uh,
Like when you are younger, you always feel like the next move is
mm,
gonna be the rest of your life. Right now, you don't want to be irresponsible, but ultimately, you end up working a bunch of different jobs. You end up meeting different people. Getting into different relationships, getting out of relationships, doing this. Like, let it unfold. Don't overthink it. Just be responsible, be loving, but don't overthink things too much. Go for things, find out, yeah, that's all I'll say. But again, I'm blessed with how life has played out. So it's hard for me to think about necessarily all the advice that I'll give, because I'll be like, you know what? Yeah, go
that's
find out.
yeah.
Yeah, go find out. Yeah,
I'll
but
find out.
yeah,
Thank you so much, Shingi, for sparing
absolutely.
time. Thank you for coming. All our followers and listeners, continue to subscribe, continue to share and reshare. We know the best is yet to come, and we appreciate you sparing time to share with us today.
I appreciate you so much, Dr. Jackson. It's again, I'm a big fan of the platform, but you know, and a big fan of your work. You know, I know you're always on the other side of this interview, so people don't get to say this, but within our community and beyond, even before I met you, your reputation precedes you, and you're definitely the blueprint and the pace setter for leadership, for community service, and for just being a pillar of a community. So I appreciate you so much, and this is such an honor being on your platform, indeed.
Thank you.
Yeah, indeed, brother, indeed.
Best is yet to come. We'll see you next week.
Sure.